people are concerned, well, what if, you know, the power doesn't work, or there's a wildfire and it's taken out the power and you won't have the power to charge your car. And that's a valid concern. But keep in mind that if there isn't power at a gas station, you can't fill up the gasoline powered car either. So, so they're even in that regard. It's a problem either way.
Well, I'd have bet against it, but they're back. Mark and Mike. It doesn't take a genius.
Jackson! Hey, good to have you back, my friend. We talked about the last time we were together, we talked about your book. This is Tim Jackson, a Colorado Automotive Hall of Fame member, a good friend of mine. And we wanted to bring you back just to talk about the electric vehicles, the EV conversation. You have owned more different types, personally owned more different types of electric vehicles than anybody that I know. You've also gotten a fist fight, not physically, but metaphorically with the Tesla company. And so, there's just so much to unpack here. So we'll start with, what do you see as the greatest benefits of electric vehicles? Why have you owned so many? And then we'll talk about maybe some of the things that could be challenges for for this adoption of this technology.
Sure. Well, and thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for inviting me back onto your show. I love your show, and I think it's great that you have this podcast going on. And so I'm more than happy to talk about some of my passions, and one of them, of course, is electric vehicles. So let me be clear up front that I think electric vehicles are very cool. They are, I believe, the future of automotive. I'm not sure they're the future of heavy trucking, and what hopefully get into that. Maybe there's better alternatives to zero emission heavy trucks than there are these big batteries. But I also think that it should be a consumer pull that's driving it, and not a government push that's driving it. So are they better for the environment? I think that they definitely are. The data that I've seen takes some carbon emissions to build an EV, but the data points that I've seen, and I've seen this one like 2 or 3 times in the last week, after about the first 20,000 miles, the EV has achieved or surpassed the carbon neutrality of a gasoline or diesel powered car, and will continue to get better and better, be more quote unquote emission free from then on.
All right, so let me challenge you on that, because I was watching somebody that was from the EV industry, and he cited the same numbers, only he cited them if the electric vehicle was charged from renewable energy sources, which 90+% of our energy resources in America are fossil fuel based. But yeah, he said, if we could build the car, it has a large carbon footprint in the build. If we can charge it from renewable resources, in a short period of time, it becomes carbon neutral. It's a much longer period of time if you're charging that car and that power is coming from a coal-fired power plant.
No, and I think that's right. A lot of this data, and that's a good point that you raised. I happen to be in Denver, and our electric provider here is further ahead than most on the zero emission capabilities. And they've made big, bold promises that I don't know how they'll achieve, but they think they will achieve zero emission capabilities by 2050, and they've reduced it to, brought it into 2040. So, but as we all know, the closer they get to that, the harder the last few miles will be to achieve that. So I think I will go with that, and I will accept that modification or caveat to my earlier statement. But that's just in the functionality of the car is going to be more emission free or better on the environment after the first 20,000 miles. And of course, a lot of cars today will last, most cars today will last 250, 300, even 350,000 miles. That's why the average age of the fleet has now achieved 12.8 years. It's the oldest fleet on record. And here in Colorado, it's 13.1 years. So and the cars are built to last, whether they're gas or electric. So um, that is a key point. So yeah, the other one of the advantages. Let me hit on advantages of the EVs first, and we'll come back and hit on some disadvantages. One of the advantages is performance. I think you never when you press that gas pedal, there's never a hesitation on an electric car. There can be on a gas car, especially a turbo powered gas car. So there's never any hesitation. It's always right there for performance. They overall perform better. They're faster out of the gate. They're faster on the open end. They're faster in the 0 to 60.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes EVs made in the beginning was they didn't talk about how much fun they are to drive.
Yeah.
You've got instant torque, instant power, and then the thing that nobody talks about is the low center of gravity. With that battery pack just suspended down low, these things corner like the old slot cars we had when we were kids. I mean, they corner magnificently, they accelerate, they handle well. And it wasn't until Tesla's Plaid came out that we started talking about the capabilities of these things as just fun cars to drive. No, I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. And so the other thing, it's nice to be able to, and got 2 electric vehicles I can do this with right now. Park it in the garage at night, wake up in the morning with a full tank of gas, basically. It's technically not a tank of gas, it's a full battery. But so being able to leave the house with a full tank is a noble goal and rewarding. Now we'll come to that. The flip challenge is when you're not on the plugging in at home at night, or you're on the road for let's say a road trip, which are probably rare for most, but and we'll come back to that when we get to the disadvantages. Thirdly, I think well, we talked about performance. We talked about having the full tank. We talked about the instant torque and the power and the likability for driving. But I think too that there's things now we see with the Ford F-150 and with the Silverado EV coming and others, that you could actually power your home off your car if you lose power. So that's something that we would have never thought about. I would have never thought about. I'll just speak for myself as becoming a benefit, and it's something that we have to acknowledge is a built-in advantage of EVs over everything else. For the utilitarian, for the small business owner, for the plumber or the electrician or the pipe fitter or the painter, to have all that power, no pun intended, out in the vehicle that they can go to and not have to rely on getting it from the residence they're doing service with, or maybe there's not a residence built there yet. So those are all advantages, and those are, I think, the ones that I would cite as the first and foremost. And then I'm, of course, more than happy to talk about the challenges. One is, you want to go there?
Yeah, let's go there. You, as somebody who's actually owned and driven a number of these things, I find it interesting that many of the pundits, people talking about these things, have never owned one, and if they drove one, it was because the manufacturer loaned it to them for 4 or 5 hours. But you've literally owned these things, and so what is it that we talked about what you like? What is it that you've found to be a downside, and what do you think going forward will be potential obstacles?
To me, it's not a big downside, but some would view it as a downside, and that is the range, or what has come to be known as range anxiety. So getting from point A to point B, will I have enough charge to get there? Then will there be a charger on the other end for me to recharge after I get there? And then thirdly, how long is it going to take to get that recharge? There's a couple of other what I would call auxiliary issues related to that. And one is in the dead of winter and really extremely cold weather, the range is shorter than what you'd normally expect. And then also it can be, I guess, in really hot weather, although I have experienced it in really cold weather. I haven't experienced it so much in the really hot weather, but I'm told that there can be a loss of range in the really cold or really hot weather. And people are concerned, well, what if, the power doesn't work, or there's a wildfire and it's taken out the power and you won't have the power to charge your car? And that's a valid concern, but keep in mind that if there isn't power at a gas station, you can't fill up the gasoline powered car either. So they're even in that regard. It's a problem either way.
Mm-hmm. So what's the you live in a wonderfully huge state. So have you driven your electric vehicle to Glenwood Springs, to Gunnison, to how do you have you navigated distance in this, and what did you find was a challenge, or was there even a challenge?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I'm glad you asked that. And your viewers may wonder what are all those vehicles that I've had. One is my first was a Ford Mustang Mach-E. I ordered it the first day the order bank came open, and then it was the first one delivered in Colorado. I had that. It was a company car, technically not my own. It was on a lease, and I put the first 25,000 miles on that car. Never had any problems with it, by the way, not a single one. And I drove it all over the state of Colorado, to places like you mentioned, Glenwood Springs, to places like Craig, Colorado, Steamboat Springs, Grand Junction, Glenwood Springs, Aspen, Breckenridge, out on the up north to Loveland and Fort Collins, out east to Sterling, Yuma, and Ray, and to the south like Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Trinidad. One of the few places that I would have liked to have taken it, I didn't get to, was one of the furthest places you can go and still be in Colorado, and that's Durango, and that's about a 7-hour drive one way. But there was I always got to my destination without a sweat, without a concern, with no white knuckles, and always had a charger on the other end that would charge it so I could get back or get to the next destination. So we've had that vehicle, and I've had and this was my wife's car, but it was owned by us. And this was a Kia Niro EV, and that worked very well. And then now she has a Kia EV6, and in the meantime, I bought a Ford F-150 Lightning, and then we just bought and this is a PHEV, but it qualifies for the tax credit and counts as California emissions, and it's called it's a Jeep Grand Cherokee PHEV.
Yep. So you talked about those are amazing vehicles, all of them on the cutting edge. So let me ask you this: you talked about it being a push rather than a push from the government. It needs to be a pull from the consumer. Were you able to take advantage of the tax credit for all of those purchases?
Well, the company did on the company vehicle, and then I did on the F-150, the Kia Niro, and the Kia EV6, and I will this year on the Jeep Grand Cherokee PHEV. So yeah, there's a lot of tax credits in there, both state and federal. And Colorado's got one of the most generous tax incentives in the country, and it goes back to $5,000 this year.
Wow. So taxpayers have augmented your car purchase to the tune of what, $60,000?
For all of those, yeah.
Yeah, for all of them combined. It's like,
close to
thank you, good citizens.
Let's say 50 plus anyway.
Yeah, 50 plus thousand. Yeah, that's wow. It's something when you think about until you said that, I didn't even think about that. You think about an individual tax credit, it's like, okay, they got 7,500, whatever it might have been for their particular car. But yeah, when you think about people buying multiple cars, you go, whoa, that adds up to, that's more than the annual household income in America for some family,
Yeah,
the average family.
I think it's their part of their DEI program. Uh, Maybe because I'm now considered a senior. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're including me.
Yeah, they're definitely including you. So yeah, that seems unsustainable as a. And what's the limit after they manufacture so many cars? Do you remember the number? Then the tax credit goes away.
Uh, well, that in the new one under the new Infrastructure Act, that's not a component of that. So
Oh wow.
I mean, it goes away on a date, which I believe is maybe 2027 or 2028, but it doesn't go away on the number of vehicles
Oh, I didn't realize that. So yeah, there's
anymore.
no longer a cap on the number of vehicles. So all these electric vehicles will qualify up till that date, unless
Yeah.
it gets extended.
Now, not all of them qualify, so we need to point that out. So check with your tax attorney or your tax advisor. Not all of them qualify.
Definitely, definitely. So you one of them that's notably absent from the list is Tesla.
I didn't buy a Tesla yet. Yeah.
So tell us more, Tim.
Well, I'm not a fan of Tesla. I am a fan of the franchise dealer network, and maybe I'm prejudiced that way. I did work for the dealer association for 18 years, but for the same reasons that advantages that Ransom Eli Old saw in 1898 and Henry Ford saw in 1908, I still see in 2023. It's an efficient way of distribution. It serves all of America or all the world better than factory-owned stores just in major metropolitan areas. It drives competition for a better price on the product. That price advantage can become a disadvantage in a very tight market. Yes, but according to JD Power data, and I want to state this right, over 90%, these are pre-COVID numbers, over 90%, it honed in on 95% of the new vehicles sold, say in 2019, pre-COVID, sold at or below MSRP. And over half of them sold for under MSRP. By the way, I'll never buy a Tesla at anything under MSRP because whatever I buy it for is the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Now, Tesla has dropped that MSRP like 13 times so far this year, it seems like, but it's still the MSRP, so you'll never buy it under that. The other thing I have a concern about, and not just Tesla, I don't want to single them out, but for the factory direct model, is there any competition or ally on the service side to get those vehicles serviced in a timely manner, in an efficient manner, in an effective manner? Those are the complaints that I see the most on Tesla, is not enough service capacity, service facility, and not enough service in the service to satisfy the consumer.
Well, and yeah, you raised some great points, and it's interesting to see manufacturers moving towards Tesla's model versus moving away from it. I know, with Ford, they split the company into two pieces. One's internal combustion, one's electric, and if you want to sell their electric vehicles in the future, you have to put up over $1 million, and you have to promise to sell the cars at the sticker price that the factory puts on them. And so, yeah, you're seeing this move towards Tesla's model and away from the traditional model that we have, even by very traditional manufacturers.
Yeah, well, and I think we're seeing that first in Europe. It may come to the U.S. more than it has, but so far, just speaking for those that I've had communications with, dealers are a lot of them like the new Ford program, and they're buying into that at the program levels that Ford rolled out. So more are than aren't, and the feedback that I got, most were satisfied with it. I'm not saying they all are, and I'm concerned about any that aren't satisfied with it. but more are than aren't. We're satisfied with it.
Yes, yeah. There's a number of guys are they're excited about it. There's also I think there's some stores that group together with a little class action, to push back on the program to some extent. So yeah, there again, with any innovation, you're gonna have early adopters. You're gonna have the laggards, people who like things to stay the same. It'll be interesting to see how all this turns out. It's kind of exciting to be in the midst of it, and it's exciting to talk to someone like you who you, like you said, you dove in feet first day one, right when you had the opportunity. And just so you know, Tim is legendary for being the first customer of every restaurant that opens in Denver, Colorado.
I sure try.
And so when you said that, you were the first one to purchase a Mach-E, the Ford fully electric Mustang in Colorado, I was not at all surprised. So what do you see next? Are you liking your Lightning? How's that working out for you?
Well, I didn't keep the Lightning a long time. I kept it for a while. It was an extra vehicle, and I told the dealer when I ordered it, I says, I'm gonna order this, but I'm not sure that I really need it. I just want it, And so I took delivery on it. I loved it. I had it for about 2 to 3 months, and but I sold it back to that same dealer, and that was when they were very short on them and a really high demand for them. He was glad to get it back. He wouldn't have been glad for me not to take it after having ordered it, because they're held to an 80% delivery standard, and they were like 80.2%. So I said, well, I'm not going to be the one to get you penalized, so I'm going to take delivery on it. So I did take delivery and kept it for a while. Took it to things like tailgate parties at a Broncos game, things like that, and got some really nice and fun use out of it. But yeah, I didn't keep it a long time.
Oh yeah. So what's the next one on your list? Are you eyeing a future purchase?
I am eyeing several. I can tell you my short list. I'd really like to have the Porsche Taycan. That's a high-end car, and I know it's great now. It'll continue to get better. I'd love to have the Taycan in the garage. I'd love to have the new Kia EV9, which is a 3-row SUV. And if it's as wildly popular as the Telluride, it's going to be really hard to get for quite a while. I'm anxious to see the next generation of the Polestar. I believe it's called the Polestar 3, which is an SUV there. I'm anxious to see the General Motors Equinox. Oh, I do have a Cadillac Lyriq, the Cadillac EV on order, and but mine's an all-wheel drive, so it's not due in until 2024. And and I'm looking forward to the Silverado EV, but it'll be just like my Ford Lightning. I really can't justify keeping it a long time.
Right. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, and it's you've become a true, some people collect wine, cigars. Apparently you've become an electric vehicle aficionado.
Yep.
That's absolutely fantastic. Any last words about EVs to our listeners, both of them?
EVs are, drive what you want. I'm a believer in freedom to drive and freedom to drive a vehicle of your choice, but try out an EV before you attack it for not being relevant or long-term good. They are a fun ride, and I think the future of automotive. And I do appreciate the opportunity to be on with you again today, and look forward to maybe joining you again when we get further along with the book.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah, excited for the book opportunity towards the end of this year, and always excited to have you on as a guest. And just so everybody knows who's listening, both of you, when Tim cites all these numbers, there's not a piece of paper in front of him. It's all stored in his wonderful cranium, and that's always fascinated me about you. That you could recall childhood friends, mom and dad's phone numbers. Just blows me away. So always glad to have you. We're going to throw it over to our announcer, Mr. Wolf, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks, Tim.
Hey, thanks so much.
And that's it. Join us next time when you'll hear Mike say, well, I'm sure he'll say something pithy. Don't miss it. Next time, it doesn't take a genius.
Nah, that's good enough.